Imagine this. A child disappears from her own bed in the middle of the night. The only person who saw anything was her 6-year-old sister, who says the kidnapper was a man in a magic hat. For more than 30 years, that one bizarre detail was the main clue in a case that went completely cold, leaving a family to fight for justice all on their own. She's gone. A man with a beard and a magic hat took her. I mean, can you imagine hearing that? That's what a 6-year-old girl told her mom after her little sister vanished. It sounds like something from a nightmare, a twisted fairy tale that would haunt this case for almost 4 decades. All right, so let's set the scene. We're in Lexington County, South Carolina. The date is June 6th, 1986. A mother wakes up to find that her 4-year-old daughter, Jessica Gutierrez, is gone. Just gone. From the bed she was sleeping in right next to her sister. So what did the family wake up to? Well, the scene inside the house just confirmed everyone's worst fears. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. Jessica's mom, Debbie, she walks through the house and finds the front door unlocked and just open. A screen from one of the windows has been taken right off, there's a curtain rod lying on the floor, and the girls' room is a mess. Papers scattered everywhere. It was a clear sign that someone had broken in. And this is where that chilling detail comes in. Jessica's sister, Rebecca, who's only 6, remember, tells her mom this terrifying story. She says she woke up and saw a man with a beard and a wizard hat lifting her sleeping sister out of bed and walking out of the room. She was so scared she thought it was a bad dream, so she just hid under the covers. So you've got this bizarre account from a 6-year-old. It's not a lot for police to go on. They start their investigation, but the trail is, well, it's pretty cold from the get-go. And the few clues they do find are just as perplexing. Okay, so what did they actually find? Near that open window, they found a pack of cigarettes. They also found a single, pretty clear fingerprint on the outside of the glass. And Rebecca later remembered another detail. The man had unplugged the fan and nightlight in their room before he took Jessica. A really chilling detail, right? For 10 weeks. For 10 long weeks, that single fingerprint was the only real lead they had. You can just imagine the family's agony, waiting. And then, finally, they got a match. The print belonged to a 27-year-old local guy named Thomas McDowell. And here's the kicker. He had done construction work at the family's home just a few months earlier. He had a beard, and what was he known for? He was almost always wearing a tall cowboy hat, something a 6-year-old might easily mistake for a wizard hat in a dark room. So they have a suspect who matches the description, and his fingerprint is at the scene of the crime. Case closed, right? Nope. In a move that is just unbelievable, police didn't file any charges. Their reasoning? They argued that since McDowell had worked at the house before, the fingerprint could have been old. And just like that, the case went cold. But for Jessica's mother, Debbie, this was absolutely not the end. In fact, it was just the beginning of a decades-long battle for justice, a fight she would have to wage almost entirely by herself. I mean, just look at this timeline. It really shows you how long this dragged on. 1986, Jessica is taken. A year later, they have a suspect, but the case just stalls. 20 years later, in 2007, Debbie is still fighting so hard she publicly releases a damning recording of the sheriff. It would take an incredible 35 years before the case was finally officially reopened. And if you want to know what kind of institutional resistance she was up against, this quote says it all. In that recorded phone call, the sheriff didn't just dismiss her concerns. He actually threatened her. He said if she kept pushing, he'd call off his team and they'd all just forget about her daughter's case. Can you even imagine? And the frustration just kept piling up. In 1987, McDowell's in prison for another crime, and his cellmate comes forward. He tells police that McDowell confessed to the whole thing. He even said he'd repeat it officially, but only if he got full immunity. The authorities refused, and another huge lead just vanished into thin air. With the official investigation dead in the water, Debbie basically became the lead investigator herself. She did countless media interviews to keep the story alive. She actually located and inspected an old car McDowell used to own. And for decades, she never stopped publicly accusing the police of letting an obvious suspect walk free. Then, after 35 years, a new sheriff took office, and everything changed. The fight for justice was finally back on, and this time, it had serious resources behind it. The difference is really night and day. Back in '86, you had a small local department that gave up pretty quickly.
In 2021, the new sheriff brings in 50, that's 50, FBI agents. They re-examine every piece of evidence and start hunting for new leads. And who was their target? The same man from 35 years earlier, Thomas McDowell.
And this time, they found more. Relatives and friends testified that right after Jessica's disappearance, McDowell completely changed his appearance. He shaved off his signature beard and long hair, and he suddenly stopped wearing that cowboy hat he was known for. Not only that, he smoked the exact brand of cigarettes that was found at the crime scene. So at the trial in 2024, the prosecution built a really powerful case. They argued the fingerprint was obviously fresh, not 6 months old. And crucially, McDowell's former cellmate took the stand and testified under oath about the confession he'd heard all the way back in 1987. So after nearly 4 decades, the trial reached its conclusion. But for the family that had waited so long, the verdict brought a really complex mix of relief and sorrow. On February 8, 2024, a jury found 63-year-old Thomas McDowell guilty of murder, kidnapping, and burglary. He was sentenced to life in prison, finally bringing the legal chapter of this case to a close. But for Jessica's mother, the victory was definitely bittersweet. While she was glad the man she always knew was responsible was finally held accountable, she pointed out that he could have and absolutely should have been arrested 36 years earlier. He got to live a free life for all that time while her family suffered. And amid the verdict and the sentencing, the story's central tragedy remains. After all these years, after all the fighting, Jessica Gutierrez has never been brought home. Her body has never been found. So yes, a guilty verdict provides accountability, but it makes you wonder, right? When justice finally shows up, but it arrives a lifetime too late, what does that really mean?